The title of this video is not clickbait. I can do a water change in this tank behind me of any size without getting a drop of water on my hands. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can do it too. There's been a ton of water changing systems shown on YouTube, but there's one major flaw with these, in my opinion. Those systems simply turn on a water supply which sends clean water into the tank that mixes up with the existing water, and then there's a drain that it all goes down. That's a good way of doing things and certainly better than not doing anything at all, but removing the contaminated water, in my opinion, is the most critical part. Actually pulling dirty water out and then replacing it with good clean water is the best way to do it. That's exactly what I've designed and built onto this tank, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. If you're going to set up a water changing system, it's actually two separate setups. One to remove the water and one to put the water back in. Let's start with removing the water. What I did in this tank is install a Seche Ultra Zero pump in the back where it'll stay permanently. I'm able to do that because I have this huge piece of wood that's hollow and covers it up perfectly. And before you ask, no, this is not a real piece of wood. It's from Universal Rocks. Look them up. I attached PEX plumbing pipes to the Ultra Zero and ran that pipe across the back wall of the tank so it'll clear the stealth box and then up and over the back of the tank. From there, the pipe goes back to the wall and down before it turns and goes straight out and ends up right here. Now, this would be a great opportunity if you have like a garden or something like that. You could put a holding tank or something like that out here to store that dirty water and then water your plants with it. But I don't have a garden out here, and this is all sandy soil that just drains really fast, so I just let it go straight onto the ground. I have a really funny story about this drain, but it's like 105 degrees out here, so let's go back inside before I tell you. I got this system installed a couple of weeks ago, and I did my first water change with it, and it worked perfectly. I drained the tank down about halfway, then refilled it back up again. Everything was great. I shut everything down, and I started walking back to the house. And as I was walking back, I saw water still flowing full speed out of that drain. I was like, oh no, what did I do wrong? Well, I'll tell you what I did wrong. I didn't consider the fact that that pipe going down the wall is going to create a siphon effect. So even after you turn everything on, the water just keeps flowing. That's why I had to install that ball valve right there, and it's white, not painted black like the rest of everything because I had to add it last second. So now, once I'm done with everything, I turn the Ultra Zero off, I shut that ball valve, and we're good to go. I guess if you're someone that likes to use as little power as possible, this would be a good thing. You can turn the Ultra Zero on, get things going, and then once it's flowing, turn it off, and you're not using as much power. You're saving the world. But now let's talk about filling the tank back up again. Lisa and I are very fortunate to have this fish house, and even more fortunate that it has its own water supply. That water comes in and goes into this water heater. And yes, it's called a water heater, not a hot water heater. I cut into the line feeding the water heater and installed a T-fitting. With that installed, I ran that PEX pipe across the wall and turned it at the corner of the tank and dropped it straight down. I also installed a valve at the end, which is what I use to turn the water on and off. You might be wondering why you saw another valve at the water heater. Well, I put that in because I'm planning on adding systems like this to all of the tanks on this wall. And when I want to work on it, I can simply turn the water off here rather than crawling my big ass under the building to turn the water off at the main line. See? Using the old brain here to see the future. Plus, I hate crawl spaces. So we've got a water line that ties into the plumbing of this building running directly to the tank with a valve that I can turn on and off. And there's a pump in the tank that pumps water out through a drain outside of the building. That's how this system works. It's as simple as that. Let me show it to you in action. So here we are at the back of the tank. You can't really see it because this FX4 is in the way, but this tank has two huge pumps that are in the sump. Those pumps have to be unplugged during a water change, otherwise they would run dry and burn up. So I plugged those two pumps into this power strip. I also plugged the Ultra Zero into this, and I even labeled them. I don't know if you can see the labels, This power strip is a gift to fish keepers because every single plug has its own switch, and then there's the main switch that turns off the whole thing too. It's the first time I've ever used a power switch like this, and I just have to say it is amazing. So when I want to do a water change, the first thing I do is come back here and open up this ball valve. And it's really stiff. And then I come back to the power strip and I turn on the Ultra Zero, and boom, water is flowing out of this building at 800 gallons per hour. I usually let it run for a minute or so to let the sump drain down a little bit, and then I turn off the two main pumps. Just like that. And then I just let it drain. Okay, so we're down not quite 50%, but we're just doing this for the purposes of this video. It's been about 15 minutes and we're down here. I'm ready to stop draining the water. First thing I'm gonna do, shut off the Ultra Zero, and then I'm gonna gingerly climb back here and get this valve. Yeah, it's not the easiest climb. It's also not the easiest to do with my left hand because the valve is super tight. But now that the Ultra Zero is completely shut down, I turn on the water here. Looky there. You might not be able to see it because of all of the glare from the light, but she's filling up nice and strong. So I keep a bottle of Fritz Complete back here. I'm gonna put that in back here in the corner and then wait for it to fill up. It's a lot of turning valves and just waiting. Carl and I just sit here and wait. Right? Right? All right, it's been about another 15 minutes and we are all full. And I made sure that not only is the tank full, but the sumps are full too. That's important when you have a sump. You have to make sure of that. Otherwise, things will get off balance. It's all weird, but the sumps are full, tank is full, turn the water off, we're done. I just did almost a 50% water change, and I never even got a drop of water on my hands. Oh, wait. I forgot. Gotta turn the pumps back on. Hello. All right, let me tell you something. You don't have to tell me that I'm a genius for creating a system like this. I already know that I am, but what you don't know is that I'm a genius for another reason, and that is that I can read minds. And I already know what you're asking yourself right now. Wait a minute, John, what about all of the debris and fish poop that's down at the bottom of the tank? This system ain't gonna do nothing for that. Well, you're a genius for asking that question. This system on this tank with no substrate does pick up some of the debris that's on the bottom, but not all of it. And these big bastards in here definitely produce a whole lot of waste. So what do I do about that? Well, my original idea was to install a couple of circulation pumps that I would turn on during water changes, which would blow all of that debris back to the Ultra Zero, which would then suck it up and send it out the building. But that's a big waste of time because I'm gonna end up installing substrate in here again. And when I do, I'm just gonna have to vacuum out the gravel every now and then. It's not a big deal. One of the things I absolutely love about a system like this is the flexibility of it. You can install this system on any size aquarium you want. It doesn't have to be a giant 360 gallon, and you don't have to use a giant expensive pump like the Ultra Zero. Maybe you have a 125 gallon like these with some cichlids in it, or a community tank that's heavily planted. A system like this is gonna be absolutely perfect for you because you're not gonna be vacuuming out the substrate anyway. You could use a much smaller pump that's only like $30 or $40. And I mean, it's not gonna be as fast as mine, but hey, you're not doing anything. You're just hooking everything up, turning it on, and then you can just walk away while it's draining. Just don't forget about it because you'll come back to the tank and it'll be empty and all the fish will be on their side flopping. Yeah, you've got to have a general knowledge of plumbing and you got to buy all of the piping and all that kind of stuff. But hey, listen, if you can do a water change whenever you want and never even touch the water, how valuable is that? And the other value is, with it being so easy to do, you're gonna be doing water changes a lot more frequently. Believe me when I tell you, this tank right here gets way more water changes than it used to because it's just so easy. I don't have to worry about anything. Yeah, it cost me like 150 bucks to put this whole thing together, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I believe, and I know my fish believe, it was worth every cent. And if you want to go really crazy, you can buy a solenoid valve and hook it up to Wi-Fi and not even have to be in the same room when you're doing water changes. But if I'm being honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of that. First of all, those valves and all of those controllers and all that kind of stuff, they are super expensive and out of reach for mere mortals like me. And the second thing is, if you're not present while you're doing all of this and something goes wrong, you're going to be in big trouble. And your fish are going to be in big trouble, which is even worse. How horrible would it have been if this was all automated and I wasn't even here to see that I had made a mistake with that ball valve and the siphoning was continuing to happen even after all of this was said and done? I'd have had 10 dead fish in here and a whole lot of people mad at me on YouTube. I like this system because of its simplicity, because it's cheap, and because it works. So what? I have to be here to turn some valves and flick some switches. No big deal. Stop being in such a hurry.